Do it, baby. Get it done.
Justin,
Yes, ma'am.
there's only one person here from health, too. Because it's Erica and Nina and Sean.
Oh, that's
So the
it?
only one here is Sean.
Okay.
Oh, same thing, no quorum.
There's nothing in it. Do we even have to?
No, they don't have any legislation, so.
We're live, Justin.
Move my trash can. I'm not left-handed.
You got it?
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, everybody. Before we begin our Committee of the Whole meeting tonight, there is a public hearing. Today is June 21st, 2022. Mr. Trevor Hunt, the Planning Director, has requested a public hearing. This is a public hearing of Barberton City Council, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. I call this meeting to order, the hearing at 6:04. This is for the fiscal year 2022 CDBG Annual Action Plan and Budget. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Okay. President Greer,
Present?
Mr. Heidick,
Here.
Mrs. Thompson,
Here.
Mrs. Bailey is not here, Mrs. Angeloff is excused, Mr. Griffin,
Here.
Mr. Jaber,
Here.
Mrs. Coburn, present, and Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. I'm here before you all tonight for a public meeting for the annual Community Development Block Grant allocation. We received the allocation on Tuesday, May 31st. And you'll note in the memo that was sent to Council that we're asking this to be called before the Council Committee of the Whole on Monday, July 18th, and then voted on a week later. We're asking this for timeliness concerns. Again, nothing is to be voted on tonight. This is a public meeting, and we welcome comment from council members or the general public here with us this evening. Real briefly, I'm going to walk you through the proposed 2022 fiscal year budget. This has come before two other public meetings last week at the Design Review Committee meeting and also the Planning Commission meeting last Wednesday. We're required by HUD, Housing Urban Development, to have two public meetings. We're hosting three, considering this the third public meeting tonight. The other item related to this matter is that we're in year 3 of a 5-year consolidated plan. So we'll have 2 more subsequent years that will follow the consolidated plan. That if you have questions about that document, I have that document up in my office, and I welcome any meetings or conversation about that subsequent to this meeting tonight. So if everyone has the memo and wants to follow along, I can just briefly walk you through some of the proposed changes as of today. So for the administration of our CDBG program, overall, we are up roughly $1,000. $8,000 from last year in our overall pot. So we've gone from $670,000 to $678,000 roughly. When you break those out into the individual programs that we administer, administration accounts for our largest portion of that. Our second largest portion of that. And coded enforcement accounts for our largest portion of that. So both of these items are up this year. The administration is going from $134,000 to roughly $135,000, so we're up only $1,000 there. And there's a cap that CDBG puts on that. You can only use 20% of your annual funds to the administration portion of that. Code enforcement, we're up 10,000. We're going from 160,000, that's what we're proposing, 160,000 to 170,000. Reason being is the building department, we've taken on a couple new employees. We've kind of redistricted the code enforcement areas of the city, so I think we've gone from 3 code enforcement officers to 5 that are actually out in the field. So we're hoping to, I know that doesn't make up the entirety of their salaries, but we're hoping this little extra bump will go in some way to those folks' salaries. Public service, we're proposing 62,000 this year. Last year we were at roughly 66,000. So net we're down about 4,000. And in terms of housing rehab, this year we're proposing 55,000, and last year we were at 73,000. So down roughly 18,000 there. And then in terms of economic development, this is assistance to eligible Barberton businesses for economic development purposes and facade loans. This you'll see a substantial increase. We are bumping this from 78,000 from last year to 110,000 is what's being proposed. The reason for this, we did a downtown blitz initiative last Tuesday. There's a meeting with roughly 40 folks that turned out, and we want to offer further financial assistance to downtown property owners. So the lump sum of this increase will be going to our facade loan program to help property owners that were issued citations to help facilitate those repairs in a timely manner. Capital infrastructure, we're proposing 87,000 this year. Last year there was 116,000 that went towards this pot, and this is largely to improve infrastructure in low to moderate income areas of the city. Sidewalks, we've launched a couple initiatives in this front, and we did increase over the past couple of years in our general fund budget our infrastructure funds. So we are decreasing this. We realize that this is a significant deduction from last year, but reason being is we've shifted a lot of that money to the facade loan program under economic development. Acquisition and demo, this year we're proposing 57,000, and last year is at 41,000. So overall, doing the accounting, that totals the $678,194, and we're welcome to receiving comments or any discussion that you might have.
Mr. Hunt, why the drop in housing rehab? What was the reasoning behind that?
So housing rehab, that went down roughly 18,000. I think we work with NDS here, and what's being requested of us isn't meeting the demand, the demand isn't meeting the supply. So we've had an excess of homes not really utilizing that fund. So what we can use with community development block grant money is that essentially if you don't use it, you lose it, but you have such and such a time frame to use that by. So past year's funds go into a pot, and we can call upon that pot if there is significant interest in that matter for housing rehab.
Okay, so if there's a need, you can go past the 55.
We can go into, we can dive into previous year's pots.
Okay.
And we should be using that money first, in fact, before our fiscal year 22 money.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Fern.
I had a question about the demolition, and its acquisition as well. Do you have any idea how many are going to be demoed this year? And I know that a lot of the planning for that is around if there's a lot of abatement and so on, but do you have any idea if you have?
So I believe there are 18 in the pipeline. We had a meeting with Director Miller last week. There's also, I believe, an 11 other houses that are kind of in the queue. They haven't made it to condemned status. So of the 18, though, we have, I believe, 10 of those are before the state of Ohio. We're waiting word on Ohio demolition dollars to see if we can remove those homes, courtesy of the state of Ohio. So, but point being, some of the additional properties that are in the queue will probably go on the condemned list. So
You should hear back from the state of Ohio within the next 2 weeks or so.
Thank you.
Councilman Hyde?
Thank you, Director. Was there any discussion on the roadmap I had proposed with the adjusting for demolition to 83,200, adjusting enforcement to 144,545, matching 83,200 from ARPA funds, grant request to the foundation for 166,400 to match both of those and turn 6 structures into 20 structures to be demolished?
So that email, we had a subsequent meeting with Law Director Miller. That will go down as a public comment. I shared that with Kate Worsler, who is in charge of this. That will be a public comment, but I want to solicit feedback from tonight's public meeting, and then before we take anything to Planning Commission, which will be July 14th, if you want to have a one-on-one meeting about that, we'd be happy to talk about how we could approach that. Not saying it can be done or can't be done, but I think it's worthy of a further dialogue.
Thank you. I just prefer to see as many structures brought down that have been condemned as possible.
Yeah, so I think what would play into that is if we receive good word from the state of Ohio that they're going to demo our 10 residential structures, then there might not be a need for that. But if we don't get that good word, then in fact, there might be some shifting that we want to do here and present it before Planning Commission on July 14th before bringing it back before City Council. So,
Thank you.
So I'd be happy to, if you want to meet on that, I'd be happy to
Well,
set up
once you hear from the state, that's, I mean, if the state wants to pay for it, I'm fine with that, but I'd like to see as many come down as we could. We're
Sure.
severely lagging on taking those down. Thank you.
Yep.
I have another question. I don't see anything on here, but this might all be about building and acquisition and what have you, but are they still working on the homeless population? Do we still have that money set aside for the
Continuum of care.
Yeah, the continuum.
Yeah, we're in regular dialogue with Continuum of Care. So they receive $15,000 a year through our public service apportionment. So, they're there to offer services, but I know the mayor always brings this up. There's a fine line of what services can be offered in forcing someone to do something, but it's something that we value, and we want to provide those technical services to our homeless population here in the city. And I guess we can only go so far. I know the mayor's been looking into a couple of different ways of addressing the homeless population, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's just a question that I get a lot.
Again, this is just a public meeting. I don't know if there's any other folks in the audience that have any comments, but happy to meet with any or all of you as appropriate per sunshine laws, but happy to meet with any of you to discuss any of these pots of money further and how we allocate this year's 2022 grant cycle. So.
Just 1 second. Does anybody in the gallery have any questions? Are there any other questions from committee members or council members? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Are there any other questions or comments? Are there any other questions or comments? One more time. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, this public meeting is closed at 6:16 p.m. And we will move into our individual committee reports this evening. Million papers here. All right, so our individual committee meetings this evening, we'll start with streets, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angeloff. She's absent. It went to Mrs. Bailey, and she's absent, so Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, we don't have a quorum for a meeting.
Thank you. All right, seeing that there's no quorum for street, sidewalk, and lighting, we're going to request that there's a special next week during legislative, and then we'll hold a special in 2 weeks for a special legislative. I know you'd be absent, so. Just making sure you know now. All right. Thank you, Mr. Shorter. Next up, what's that? Mr.
That's fine, I'll take it.
Depends on who you're talking to. Right? I call my mom Miss Michelle sometimes. All right. Next up is health with Mrs. Bailey. Again, she's gone, and Mrs. Angeloff was chair, so we are going to Mr. Jaber for health.
There'll also be no quorum today, sir.
Thank you. Seeing that there's no quorum for the Health Committee this afternoon, we'll refer to a special if needed for next week. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the Planning, Annexation, and Codes meeting to order. It is Tuesday, June 21st, 6:18 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Members of the committee present include myself as chair. Mrs. Angeloff is absent. Mr. Jaber is here, as well as President Greer. Other council members present will be noted, as well as guests on my sheet. We have several topics of discussion this evening. The first few regarding the Truson Farm development. I know there's been a lot of questions over the past few weeks, so I'm going to take the time to call a representative to go over some of those questions before we get into this.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ryan Summers, and I'm a representative developer. My partner and colleague, Doug Weintraub, is not able to be here, but thank you for your time, and thank you for many thoughtful questions and comments, both at the last meeting and follow-up ones we've received in the interim. I asked my colleague Nora Walsh to pass out. We did a handout based on some of these questions. If you don't already have it, if you do, we could just talk from that. But some of the items that we wanted to talk about were the specifics of what the incentives were going to be used for. To recap, we're looking at a 15-year CRA tax abatement and a tax increment financing district that would be for the non-school portion only. These will be redirected back into public infrastructure.
I've got it.
And will fund improvements to the project.
Thank you.
They will not be a developer subsidy in terms of receiving a monetary incentive. It would be all used to pay for public infrastructure. So what we really want to focus on, what are the impacts to the cities? What are the impacts to the Coventry schools? And address a number of questions, some being what type of buildings will be built in single family, and stormwater being another concern that's been out there from the past meetings we've been here. We've put together a pretty detailed economic impact analysis, both on our side and with input and transparency with the city's administration and their consultants. And the big takeaway here is that what the CRA would do in the TIF, it would redirect the city's share of property taxes back to the project, help pay for infrastructure. And in return, that equates to approximately, right now, the property pays almost no taxes. It's vacant, it's being farmed, there's no improvements. About $400 and some annually per year to the city. We looked at it as if it would be reassessed based on what we paid, and that would amount to $835 annually. That's what the city gets in total from the project, or from the property. When our project's completed, it'll be roughly $40 million, $32 million of hard construction costs. We expect to generate conservatively $106,000. And the loss of taxes based on that full valuation would be about $22,789. At a minimum, we think it'll be $83,000 in net gain to the city on an annual basis. In addition, within the first 3 years of construction, you could expect $385,000 of taxes, income taxes paid based on the construction investment. Recognizing this isn't all financial, we also were very careful to dive into the concerns from Coventry Schools. A reminder, this is not a Barberton School District property. We think, based on our demographics and having done this many, many times, that there will likely be between 20 and 30 school-age students. Not sure exactly, that's a really hard number to determine. But it's very small, and Coventry Schools will receive money from the state to help offset that. In addition, when our abatement expires, we conservatively think that school district will receive $401,000 on an annual basis from the project. And we've put this in a memo that we've shared, and we've also sent to Coventry Schools. So we're very mindful of that. We're mindful of what the city's investing. We think the ROI here is very good. And we hear you on the concerns, but we think this project will be a huge win for the community. We've gone through many months of meetings of planning, individual meetings with both citizens and council and administration. And I'm happy to dive into any questions or concerns. The mayor would like to say anything as well, but I'll open it up to you to please ask any questions and bring up anything that we didn't cover. So thank you.
I'd just like to reiterate, as Brian said, we've been meeting on this since a few months now. We have the weekly call. I know there's been a lot of questions, so we want to make sure that every question is answered. And then there's a lot of things floating around in the public side as well, which is inaccurate from a lot of things I've seen. So we want to make sure that all the information's out there, and you guys make the best decision with all the information. So.
Yes.
I have a question about the CRA. Is the area just your acreage, or does it go beyond that because it's a blighted area? Because in the CRA, it does mention that if people in that area would make upgrades to their property, that their taxes also would not have to be paid on the improvements. Is that something that's going to happen, or is this just for your development?
So for the specific requirements under the Ohio Revised Code, we did include a couple of adjacent parcels along 619, but that didn't expand beyond a few adjacent parcels. I don't know the exact number. Trevor might know.
I think it's 12 parcels.
12 parcels that would front. So it's not a large area. So technically, the answer is yes, it does include some additional parcels, but only to meet the minimum requirements.
Okay, thank you.
It's 12 parcels, including the two that you have.
Yes.
So they would be eligible for, if they put their money back into their property, they would be eligible for this reduction in taxes.
It's not a reduction.
Well,
They,
right,
they continue to
farm.
pay exactly what they'd pay if someone put on a $50,000 addition under this. That would be exempt for the period of the CRA.
Just the addition.
Just the addition.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. This net tax increase to Barberton with the 83,000, the current city property taxes collected, is that the total number of millage, including fire, everything, or is that just our general fund?
It's all your millage. You roughly, going from memory, only get 4.42% of each tax dollar. It's a very small amount. So within that, you have your general fund, fire, and however else you direct your tax dollars. It's a very small percentage of the property tax bill.
It is. I wish people knew that.
Yes.
Thank you. And just giving everybody else a chance there. It just came to my attention that a community center is going to be a part of this. That wasn't in the original drawings, was it?
I want to clarify, there will be a clubhouse that would serve the community. It's primarily an amenity to the project. We'll have a walking trail, pickleball courts. The center is not like a traditional in that, you'd have citywide activities. It's really for the project. Could there be a situation where family moved in from Austin Estates and they wanted to hold a reunion? Sure, but it's not necessarily a community center in a traditional sense. It's more of a clubhouse amenity.
Thank you.
Yes,
Council President.
I actually just wanted to mention a couple other things that might not be included on this. It was mentioned annual or service monthly hookups. I believe I checked with some other people, it's around $60. I said 30, so it comes out to about $6,000, give or take, and bare minimum for just water services too as well. So I did want to mention that, because that was mentioned last meeting about the service hookups and the service charges monthly.
There'll be additional permit fees we'll pay to the city. We're not looking, there'll be obviously utilities paid to the city. And there's going to be a lot of indirect impacts where folks are living here, shopping. It's going to be a higher end project, both the luxury apartment. We're very careful that these are more like single family homes, even the apartments that are just rented. It's for the folks that sell a house. They don't want to go to assisted living. They're going to come here, they're going to pay between $1,500, $2,000 a month, but it's going to cover grass, insurance, some of their utilities, no maintenance. It's not a 8-story apartment project high density. It's very high end. This is our 4th community in Summit County. And of course, the homes will also be high end. We think they'll be in about the $400,000 range. We made a commitment to not, to where we can, we're going to work with administration and in the law department to create restrictions that would basically not allow a tract builder to come in and just build low-cost housing. We think our builders will come from Austin Estates, or our homeowners, and other choose your builder type consumers.
And also, the rental units will pay the rental registration, about $15,000 a year. Also stormwater and those types of things as well. So everything that all the other residents pay. Mr. Gurr brought up the water, but also storm sewer and sanitary sewer as well. So just some of those ongoing revenue in the city.
Things we forgot.
Just putting that there.
Yes.
This question is actually for the mayor, and I don't know the legalities of this, if it can even be done. If something like this were to pass with this kind of tax abatement, I know there's been talk in the past of that tax credit rollback. Can that be targeted to certain areas, or does that have to function as a city unit?
No, the tax rollback would be on the income taxes, not property taxes.
Correct, but could it be labeled into certain areas such as this?
No, I believe that's got to be citywide.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment and thank you for continuing to come to talk with us. I think you have a great idea, and I think we would be foolish to not go ahead with this. And I just want to thank you because I know you maybe feel like you've been under the gun with all these questions and what have you, but we really appreciate you coming to
Of
talk
course.
with us.
Well, I appreciate everyone being thorough, and we look forward to being neighbors for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go over the first request for legislation, a letter from Trevor Hunt, Planning Director, requesting an ordinance to create the Truson Farm Community Reinvestment Area pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Sections 3735.65 to 3735.69. This is continued from June 6th. Are there any questions regarding this piece of legislation? Hearing none, can I get a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. In a
I'll
second? Thank you, Mr. Greer. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a letter from Trevor Hunt, Planning Director, requesting an ordinance to approve a planned unit development, PUD, for 2070 West Turkey Foot Lake Road, also identified as parcels 74.00278 and 74.00217, also continued from 6/6/2022. Are there any remarks regarding this piece of legislation? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. In a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have another letter from Trevor Hunt, Planning Director, requesting an ordinance to rezone 2070 West Turkey Foot Lake Road, also identified as parcels 74.00278 and 74.00217 from I-1 Light Industrial to RM18 Residential Multifamily, also continued from 6/6/22. Are there any questions regarding this piece of legislation? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on, we have a letter from Trevor Hunt, Planning Director, requesting an ordinance to implement the Truson Farm Housing Development Tax Increment Financing, TIF, project pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code Sections 5709.41 to 5709.03, continued from 6/6/22. Are there any questions regarding this piece of legislation? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, we have a letter from Trevor Hunt, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting legislation to enter in a contract with T&M Associates for subcontracting of the $450,000 to execute the grant dollars received through the state of Ohio. T&M Associates will be responsible for subcontracting with various agencies to conduct environmental testing, abatement, and cleanup. Emergency wording is requested, and this is also with Finance, which passed committee on 6/13. Are there any remarks regarding this legislation? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this, please?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Everyone in favor? Aye. Moving right along. Next up, we have another letter from Trevor Hunt, the Planning Director, requesting an ordinance to allow the Finance Director to appropriate $450,000 from the unappropriated item to the City Grant Fund to the Planning Department's operating budget of the City Grant Fund. Emergency wording is requested. Again, this is also with Finance, which passed committee last week on 6/13. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this, please?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Everyone in favor? Aye. Perfect. Okay. Next up, for pending legislation, we have, I don't think I have anything, actually. Just this. Yeah, we just went over everything, so nothing for that. I'll open this up for miscellaneous discussion. President Kerr?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that all three of those Truson Farm pieces of legislation are going 3 readings.
Correct. Four of them.
Or 4, sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Any other miscellaneous? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm very pumped up for this, since day one, since you guys came in. I was excited. Only thing people were worried about was the flooding situation. So you guys answered all our questions, and we're ready for this, and we're excited to have you guys in Barberton, and thank you.
Okay, any other miscellaneous discussion from other council members? The gallery? Anything? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion, ma'am.
Thank you. In a second.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. And we are adjourned at 6:37.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Next up is Finance and Personnel with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll give everybody a chance to make their exit there. All right, Finance and Personnel, it is Tuesday, June 21st, 2022, 6:37 PM. We are in council chambers. The committee consists of Councilors Coburn, Thompson, and President Greer, with myself as chair. All others are noted. We have one request legislation, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Wickert Insurance Company for a one-year renewal of the city's property, vehicle, equipment, and liability insurances, which expired June 29th, 2022. Emergency wording requested. The directors also asked us to waive the 10-day rule, as this legislation needs to be voted at the June 27th, 2022 regular legislative meeting. Before I entertain any motions on that, I'd like to explain a little of this. I had conversation with the director this morning. The policy is going to be about $5,000 more than last year, which, given the circumstances of year to year, isn't bad. He would be remiss if he did not inform us that 130 of that previous year was for the dam. The part of the dam that is not, the dam's not included in this insurance policy, nor would any insurance company cover the dam after extensive shopping, which is why this request comes so late. The director has done more than due diligence finding this. The reason is no insurance companies anywhere want to touch dams. That said, he has spoken with Director Weaver that our dam is still in good shape and there's no fretting or nothing to worry. The grants that are coming in and the allocations of those, according to Director Flaker, will be enough that next year, when the construction starts, we should be able to renew insurance on the dam. But he was wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that the dam is fine, but we will not be able to have it covered for a year. That's why this request is so late, as he vigorously shopped around and found that nobody would cover it. So I'll take any questions or remarks. The director's unavailable right now, but see what I can't do.
So, Mr. Heidi.
Counselor?
A year from now, you're going to make improvements, correct?
According to Director Flaker and Director Weaver, the grants that are coming in should cover the bulk of the cost for any necessary constructions that would put it back in the realm of being able to be
insurable.
covered.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Counselor?
Either you can answer it or Bill. What do we do in the event that we would have some kind of accident or, you know,
Run.
the dam
Pray.
breaks or
Pray.
what have you? What do we do in those instances?
We constantly monitor the dam.
Mhm.
We have people there every day. There are no breaches or any issues, but it's and I don't recall the name of the dam. Each dam has a different type of name. But, like Mr. Flaker told Councilman Heidi, we did apply for some grant funding, and it took the better part of a few years to do the engineering, to fill out the grants. So we feel very confident. This is about an $11 million project.
Mhm.
Just kind of waiting on those above us to get us the grant award.
They've told us we're gonna get it as far as utilities go, but they haven't produced the money, isn't that
I'll make sure
correct?
it's in writing.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
Yeah.
he had told us really that
Yeah.
when we went out to visit the dam. I mean, I know that they've been trying to get grants for a very long time. I just wanted to know if we had Plan B in the event that we have
If
some
we find any issues
catastrophe.
with it, in the meantime, we would definitely take action
Mhm.
very quickly.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I can't really go on more because it depends on what kind of issue you find.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hayden.
The directors are confident that we should be able to last a year to get that. And Director Flaker did say, given the nature of the upgrades that will be happening, once those upgrades get set in motion, they don't have to be completed, but once they're set in motion, it will actually put us in position to have it back into our umbrella policy where we won't have to have a separate policy just for that, or a separate carve-out type deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
And this
Counselor?
is all because of the dams that broke in Michigan a couple years ago, correct?
Between that and and everybody loves to say it, and I hate saying it, COVID, insurance companies are taking zero risks on anything. And once the upgrades, the beautiful thing is once the upgrades start is when the insurance companies will start allowing it. They don't have to be, we don't have to wait till they're completed, but once, like the mayor said, everything's in writing and hammers hit the wall, we can have it back under the umbrella policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 302?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
That's all we have for new requests. For pending. Get my paperwork here. For pending, we have letter from Thomas Height, Councilman at Large and Chairman of the Finance and Personnel Committee, requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 54-2019. Wait, am I looking at the right thing here? Yes, I'm sorry. To adjust compensation of the mayor, law director, and finance director to $109,000 each commencing in 2024 with a 2% increase or matching collective bargaining contracts, whichever is higher yearly in perpetuity, with 3 readings and no emergency language. That's actually been amended to 115 mayor and 109 law and finance. Also pending is with Councilor Thompson's planning committee, a letter from Trevor Hunt, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting an ordinance to allow the finance director to appropriate $450,000 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the planning department's operating budget of the city grant fund. Emergency wording requested. Next is a letter from Trevor Hunt, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting legislation to enter into contract with T&M Associates for the subcontracting of the $450,000 to execute the grant dollars received through the state of Ohio. T&M Associates will be responsible for subcontracting with various agencies to conduct environmental testing, abatement, and cleanup. Emergency wording requested. A letter from Don Patterson, Director of Parks and Recreation, requesting legislation to appropriate $388.33 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the Parks Department capital budget of the city grant fund as a result of unused monies received from a grant from the State of Ohio Coronas Relief Funds, Adult Daycare Service, Senior Center Provider Relief. And a letter from Mayor Judge requesting legislation to approve a .75 mils police capital property tax levy to be placed on the November 2022 ballot. With that, I will take any remarks on any of the pending legislation. None? Well, then I will open up to miscellaneous discussion. Anything from the committee? The body? Counselor?
Any new updates on the safety director's position and also assistant to the mayor's?
Mayor, could you-
Finance.
It's a personnel.
Amy Iceman has been appointed to HR/safety director.
Ms. Iceman? Awesome. Good pick. She's awesome.
So we have 2 other employees starting. I want to wait until I have a chance to meet with them for executive assistant positions.
Awesome. Good pick on Ms. Iceman. She did an awesome job with the union talks with the police and fire. Thank you.
And Ms. Iceman, when did your appointment take effect?
Monday the 13th.
Well, now I can address you as Director Iceman.
Sounds like a Top Gun thing.
Mayor, did you have some more?
Oh, I want to just touch on a point you made last week. You made the point very clearly last week, but I want to ask you again. if the property tax increase for police capital levy passes, how much can be used for wages?
$0 of this can be used for wages. If the .75 mil passes for police capital, that is the average homeowner about $1.80 a month, based on 89,000. It's $1.80 a month, and that $1.80, Mr. Moorhead, what can that not be used for?
I believe I heard that it can't be used for wages.
Thank you. That's
I
what-
received some phone calls over the weekend and got some screenshots of social media pages where they're talking about wages and this and that, so just want to keep driving that point home.
Yes, this cannot be used for wages.
louder, we can't hear you.
All right, is there any other discussion, any other comments?
Over here.
Counselor?
Not only that, but this is to get it on the ballot for people to vote on this. So
Right,
whatever you think about it, take it to the polls.
right.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:48.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our individual committee meetings this afternoon. We're going to take a short 3-minute break and come back and begin the committee of the whole meeting. My wife does it all the time.
So, Mr. Hyde, I looked at your head there. What you do, get tired of you? What you do? Huh?
You know when you're,
What?
you know when you're,
Explain to me.
when you're bald, there's
Nothing up there.
There's no pain receptors. So when you get bit by a mosquito, you don't know it. And when you shave, and there's a raised bump where there was a mosquito bite,
Top goes off.
yep, took
Okay.
the whole thing right up.
I just wonder how the new web is going out.
It looks like a murder scene in that bathroom. When you cut your scalp, it does not stop.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered.
But it's, I went to try to avoid it because I felt it, and I caught it with the corner of the razor and just pulled the whole thing.
That's it. Thin layer of skin.
And it doesn't hurt.
It don't hurt. No.
You feel it, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
it doesn't
hurt.
hurt, right?
So now you're just mad.
Just remind
No,
me
this
to
is-
call the,
Oh, the levy.
So in other words, you want us to carry the whole freaking month with us every day?
Right.
No, because I give you,
Yes.
on committee of the whole, I give you all the drafts that are going forward.
Honey, this is all I got in my thing.
You didn't
You
get a
picked it up
copy of the total,
Thursday.
of the drafts
That's why.
list in your
Because
mailbox?
that's all I got too. They weren't there till Friday. See, we picked them up when you said
And I
your
didn't
mail's
get
ready.
them until
So they're
late
in my
Thursday.
mailbox.
I didn't get them until late Thursday night.
Right, but if you say the mail's there, then we think it is.
And we come in,
And that's why I sent out that other email that said, and if you notice, the email was sent out at 7:30 Thursday night, that I got the drafts late. I came in and got everything out so you would have them for the meeting.
honey,
You
I don't
answered-
check my city mail at 7:30 at night.
No, but I sent it out Thursday night. Did you not check it on
I
Friday?
picked it
No,
up.
because I picked it up on Thursday.
It's been late requests.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
but she
and
said
I didn't get 'em
they'll be
back.
on Monday.
I didn't get them back, get it from Lisa until late Thursday.
I did
I
read
leave
that.
at noon on
But my
Thursday.
packet has 2 freaking pages in it, and you read 6. So I'm on record.
I always look on here before I don't even go to my mailbox till I come in here. I look at everything when Lori sends it online here.
I read it on there.
Everybody has their own way though, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I know, but it-
And I put mine all in order before I come to the meeting,
and
so
I
I
thought
want to
I
have it
did.
on the weekend, so I can put it in order.
And I would check, I would
Anyway.
just check your city email like late Friday. If something comes in late, I come in on my own time.
I
and
know,
make sure
we
that
talked
you guys
today.
get these things out.
But we had gotten a thing that our stuff was in, our packets were in our mailbox, so I picked it up Thursday.
Right. And
So
when
then,
those,
when I'm looking for stuff, I'm like, I don't have all my stuff.
and that's why when you sent me the email back and said, you know, print those drafts out for me, I said, they're already done and in your mailbox. I put them in late Thursday night. You know, like I said, I knew you guys would need them. I wasn't gonna be here on Friday, and we were closed on Monday. So that's why I did it that way.
Well, that, we couldn't have gotten it at 7:30 anyway.
I know, but I also scanned that and sent it to you guys, email scanned like I do the packets.
Right.
It was both ways. The only other way I can think to do it is I will hand deliver them from now on.
No,
To everybody
you know
that
what
comes
though?
in.
I'm gonna call, if you don't have the drafts, just say we don't have the drafts yet, and then I'll wait.
Okay, because the only
I'm not a tech guy, so
and I-
I'm not an engineer.
She was on vacation.
Yeah, but I got a phone call today.
Oh,
So because they asked me to type up a draft for plate exhibits.
That was a mosquito bite that I took the razor right across. When you don't,
It like fits on your, in the palm of your hand and you just go over it.
You can't put a liquor
You're good to go, like an electric razor, but it's specifically made for your head.
see, you people with hair don't have to worry about the mosquito bites.
yeah. I know, well, see, anything can happen, that's why I said that, yeah.
Imagine them up here.
And Denny, you know, told us all the things that needed to be done. And actually, I'm surprised they hadn't gotten it done yet, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
Get some more
I
flats
think
down
they're
the south
gonna
end. They haven't been,
when they
they haven't been
get the
in here
grant
yet.
money, I think so, because it's an old kind of a dam. I don't think so, that is
It is.
really old, really old.
Getting that.
We'll figure out.
Yeah, right.
We'll figure it out.
Got the lawn mowed, pulled
Like if we have something like
a little
that.
bit when that sun came out. And I was like, all right, it was by 10 o'clock, I was like, I'm done.
If we know that there's.
Yeah, but it even might have been, yeah, it might have been before then.
Not looking forward to that.
Yeah, I don't know, Denny would know, he would know all that stuff.
And
When
my
the
relatives
dam
are
was
doing
built.
something.
Oh, they used to, they jinxed it. They from Arizona. That's how Arizona was.
Yes,
They came,
but
they got, they came to town
in
yesterday,
recent
they were freezing.
discussions with
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
It was
you
like
have
78.
gotten the
They
notifications
wanted to ride in the Jeep,
that were 100%.
and they all had to have their jackets on, and it was like, really
on two
guys?
different
It's 115
grants.
or now out there.
And that was in the last.
All right, we're going to begin in about 30 seconds. Please ensure your cell phones are off or on silent. Council members, ensure your microphones are turned on.
No, I'm sure.
I just seen the public meeting was in the whole. We're good though. Good.
Who's going to do Nina's report? Who's
She
second?
asked Short, well, she's second and Shorter's third, so,
Oh, okay, sure. I was gonna do
but
it.
they, no report.
All right, good evening. Today is Tuesday, June 21, 2022. This is a committee of the whole meeting for the Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:56 PM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizens addressing council. Thank you, Joyce.
There are none.
All right. We will hop into our committee reports for this evening. First up is street, sidewalk, and lighting with Mrs. Angeloff, her being absent, and co-chair being absent today, Mr. Griffin.
We don't have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr.
No,
And you don't have a report.
I don't have a report.
Yeah,
There's no
thank-
report.
Thank you. For the record, I've requested that a special be held next week for street, sidewalk, and lighting, and hopefully we have a quorum
Yes.
then. All right. Planning, Annexation, and Codes, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes met this evening at 6:18. We went over several requests for legislation regarding the Truson Farm development, being a request for a CRA, the planned unit development, the rezoning from I-1 light industrial to RM18 residential multifamily, and for the TIF, as well as, and all of those will go 3 readings. And then we also discussed what has already gone through finance, the legislation related to T&M Associates for subcontracting $450,000 to execute the grant dollars received through the state of Ohio. They'll be subcontracting with various agencies to conduct environmental testing, abatement, and cleanup. Emergency wording is requested on that, as well as another piece of legislation, request for legislation to allow the finance director to appropriate the $450,000 from the unappropriated item to the city grant fund to the planning department's operating budget of the city grant fund. Emergency wording is requested on that as well. And outside of that, I have nothing new to report. We adjourned at 6:37. So with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. City Utilities, Mrs. Colburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met last week in council chambers. All members were present. We had one request for legislation that we did refer to streets. This was a letter from Michael Tedecki, city engineer, requesting legislation to allow the mayor to enter into contract with Thrasher Group Incorporated for professional engineering services for development of the South Barberton Stormwater Master Plan. Portions of the results will be incorporated into the storm sewer system that will be built with the South Van Buren project. The cost is not to exceed $78,775. Emergency wording was requested. And did, Mr. Tedecki, did you want to elaborate on that this evening or wait for streets?
The importance of this, I think, will provide a good opportunity to study in detail, provide some flooding relief down in and around the South Van Buren area. So the emergency to move it quickly so we can move into the study phase. We're going to include the results of some of that portion of the study with the storm sewer system that'll be developed with the South Van Buren project. So we want to get those results to properly design it into the roadway plans so that early next year when we build that project, we can start to see the results, soon. So we want to get started on that pretty quickly because of the importance of it.
Thank you. That was the only legislation we had. We discussed the miscellaneous discussion we went back to 2010 and 2011 on the give it back. And that was the money that was put into for the building, for the land that we were not able to use, and we gave it back. So it didn't interfere with what we're doing today out in the Truson Farm area. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public Welfare and Safety, Mrs. Frack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met on Monday, June 13th, 2022. The meeting began at 6:48. We were in council chambers. All members were present, as well as all council members. Also, guests as noted on my agenda sheet. We had one request for legislation, which was a letter from Robert A. Inkervati, Court Administrator, requesting legislation to enter into contract with U.S. Royce Protection Service, which was formerly known as Tenable Protection, for a one-year period running from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Emergency wording is requested, no comments or discussion. We voted on the contracts for police officers and also lieutenants and sergeants, and an MOU was presented, which is to be attached to those contracts for premium pay for the officers and sergeants and lieutenants. There was a little bit of miscellaneous discussion about a gambling bust or whatever on Worcester Road. Chief Morber was here, and he said that things didn't happen as were discussed. With that, safety, public welfare and safety will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Rules, Marketing, and Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules Marketing and Development met last week. We had no requests for legislation. All members were present. So with that, I pass, sir.
Thank you. Environmental Health and Social Services, that is Mrs. Bailey's committee, and being that Mrs. Angeloff is out, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had no quorum today since both members were out today.
All right. I'd just like to add that the last meeting was June 13th, and there was nothing to report on that. Thank you, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you.
City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties Park Recreation met at 6:02, June 13th. Council chambers, all members were present. Other council members also noted were present. We had one request of legislation, a letter from Don Patterson, Director of Parks and Recreation, requesting legislation to appropriate $388.33 for an unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the Parks Department capital budget of the city grant fund as a result of unused monies received from a grant from the state of Ohio, coronavirus relief funds, adult day service, and senior center provider relief. We had a motion for that, and that passed. Then we had for miscellaneous discussion, we have a presentation from the camera system currently in consideration from Sharetech. We had Mr. Eli and Mr. Frankie did a presentation, and now we're just waiting to see what the next step is for that. And we adjourned at 6:46. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Just a correction, it wasn't June 13th at the last meeting, for me, when I said that. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Personnel has met the past 2 weeks. We have called out a committee, letter from Thomas Height, Councilman at Large, Chairman of Finance Personnel Committee, to request legislation amending Ordinance 54-2019, adjusting compensation of Mayor, Law Director, and Finance Director. A letter from Trevor Hunt, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting an ordinance to allow the Finance Director to appropriate $450,000 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the Planning Department's operating budget of the city grant fund with emergency wording requested. A letter from Trevor Hunt, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting legislation to enter into contract with T&M Associates for subcontracting of the $450,000 to execute the grant dollars received through the state of Ohio. From Parks, a letter from Don Patterson, Director of Parks and Recreation, requesting legislation to appropriate $388.33 from the unappropriated item of the city grant fund to the Parks Department capital budget of the city grant fund. A letter from Mayor Judge requesting legislation approving of a .7 mils police capital property tax levy to be placed on the 2022 ballot, which cannot be used for wages. Also, a letter from, just making sure everybody knows, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation to authorize the mayor into contract with Wickert Insurance Company for a one-year renewal of the city's property, vehicle, equipment, and liability insurances, which will expire June 29th of 2022. Emergency wording requested. We invoked 702 to suspend 302 to waive the 10-day rule, as this legislation needs to be voted on next week. We also approved out of committee the finance report for May. With that, finance personnel passes.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Anything from the body? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things. Mr. Teagaki, I always messed up your name, I apologize. Thank you for last week's meeting for the landlords and business owners for downtown. They came in pretty upset before the meeting because all the tension was built up high, but you organized the meeting very, very well. You got everything split up, and I appreciate that. After the meeting, people felt different, and they're organized, and they're ready to proceed with the stuff they had to take care of. So thank you for taking care of that meeting. Second, Ms. Price, thank you for everything you do. You rock, you're awesome. You do a lot of stuff after hours and over the weekends, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you for that. And then, Ms. Eisman, of course, congratulations, welcome aboard. Since you're already there, but, in a higher position. And the third thing, for the tax levy, I think you guys said no wages, correct?
No way.
I understand we need the money. I just feel the mayor's administration and other council members, I think we're just wasting our time putting this on the levy, pass forward it. I honestly don't think it's gonna pass. The citizens don't want it. And they might see it's not for wages, but at the end of the day, they see a tax levy, and it's not gonna go. I mean, we want the money, we need the money, but with the tax levy, the citizens are gonna see that, and all they're gonna see is yes or no. And they're gonna see tax increase, they're gonna say no. So, we'll see what happens with that, and like I said, it'll be on a November election, and it's for the residents to choose, not us, but our job's to put it on there. I'm just trying to save us time and paperwork and dealing with social media and the residents. I think we should find a different way get the money in there instead of doing a tax increase. So, again, I know it's not for wages, but I just feel like we shouldn't be moving forward with this and wasting a lot of our time and our energy to show the residents why we should put this on there. And, sir, with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. To what Councilor Jaber's point there, when we originally put a 3-year property tax levy on the ballot and it was ultimately defeated, one thing I did hear in its defeat was, had it been earmarked for specific things, had it been earmarked for police, had it been earmarked for this, there was general support for extra money to come in, as long as it wasn't going just towards the city, was the general sentiment. A lot of people took issue with that it would just fund the general fund, where it could be used for different things, including wages. The bulk of the no's that I heard following that vote was the people wanted it earmarked so that it would go towards something that they could see right away. They can see a police levy right away. They can see that if this money comes in, that we could potentially put it up against matching grants, that we could replace some of our cruisers, which are just, some of them are in the worst shape you could ask for, and our dear officers still use them to the best of their ability. I believe the people of this city know our police force. They do a fantastic job integrating themselves with the community. They're not just uniformed people walking around. They're actually a part of it. I've seen officers go out of their way to do things that is not even in their job, but they just do it because they are a vital part of it and they understand it. We have a small town. We don't have the Clevelands. We don't have the giant metropolises where people don't even know which officer is who. You go down the street, you go to Giant Eagle, you see some of these officers, we know them. They know us. They know the people around the city. And I believe our citizens respect that, and I believe our citizens would be very supportive in making sure that our police force can have what they need. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Is there any other council members? All right. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. In terms of the tax levy, I hear it all the time, and just to kind of echo the points of Councilman Jaber and Councilman Heidi. This isn't a good time. Well, I've never, ever heard anyone say this is a perfect time for a tax levy. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. There was the recession a few years ago, there's a pandemic, there's inflation, but that inflation hits us too. So cost of everything goes up, and if you don't have safety forces, what kind of community does that turn into? Probably about 15 years ago or so, give or take, the fire department went out for a capital levy, and that passed. I don't have the numbers in front of me on the passage, on the vote there, but I'll look that up. We're currently waiting on 4 cruisers, but those, the average life of a cruiser is maybe 4 to 5 years. They do take a beating at times and put a lot of miles on. I could write a whole horror story book on fleet management and what was going on with the fleet here in town when I first became mayor, from safety forces to utilities and pickup trucks and other equipment. I think we still have some pieces of equipment that are bought in the late 70s, early 80s. And just, we had talked internally, do we go for, before Mr. Heidi's point, we went to kind of a general levy, and I heard the same comments as well. It was specific. So we've talked before, do we try to put something on for the parks? It only goes for the parks, to keep our parks updated. Do we do something just for fleet? Because vehicles are very expensive. And you remember just a few weeks ago, we received a pickup truck that we ordered 2 years ago. Heck, a pump just came in for the water treatment, or wastewater treatment that they ordered a year ago. So a lot of things that we're kind of fighting. So there is no good time for the tax levy. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, and I get that. But we have to do something. We have to at least put it on the ballot and see how the residents feel about it. I'm going to look up some more facts and figures for next week, but I appreciate the comments and the feedback from council. The feedback I've received so far from the public is, 1, nobody wants to pay more taxes, and 2, we'll pay for it for the police, because I'd like to have it on the safety side, and so it's earmarked for that. And just to clarify, it's not for police wages either. So I don't want people to think, well, it's for police, maybe it can be used for their wages. No, it's all capital goods, and that's defined as anything that's $5,000 or more. So. Change for Change will be held at Hodges Cafe this Friday, benefiting the Esther Ryan Shoe Fund. Started looking at some stats. Since my administration started Change for Change, and we do Jeans Day for employees on Fridays if they donate money, and other programs that we've done charity basketball games and flag football games and things like that. We've raised over $73,000 in the last 10 years and 5 months. It's over $6,500 a month or a year we've raised in Barberton through donations that have stayed in Barberton and helped Barberton nonprofits, the Barberton community. So very proud of that. A lot of excitement and growth here in downtown. So the upgrade to the Big Lots store, the new Marks, a lot of growth at BWXT that was outside of their growth plan from a few years ago, ARDL, and a few other businesses here in town. And there's more businesses downtown that are in the process of renovating or getting ready to open as new businesses. So very, very exciting. As discussed earlier, Councilman Jaber, a few weeks ago, our building department did a sweep of downtown commercial buildings. So everybody was looked at, even the city buildings. So focusing on the exterior of the building, not going inside and looking at electrical or anything, just focusing on the exterior. So every single building was inspected, like I said, even the city facilities. Every property received a letter. So if they had no violations, they received a letter saying, hey, congratulations, we inspected the exterior of your building, keep up the good work, you met all codes. If you had violations, this is the letter you received. So we held a meeting, and Councilman Jaber said, pretty well attended. You could tell some people had a lot of questions as they came in. The meeting was run very well. About 40 people showed up to that. Some of them have multiple properties that they own. But the goal is, and we kept reminding them, the goal is to fix the violations. If we want people to be downtown, we want to make sure the buildings are up to code. So, meeting very positive, really strengthened, I think, the relationship between the city and small businesses. Heard comments of, I knew this was an issue, but never got around to fixing it. The city nailed it on the head with the violations that I had. Didn't know this was a violation until you pointed it out. Thanks, I'll fix it. And I'm glad this was done in a fair way. And so, as mentioned, we're putting programs together internally that could help some of the violations, but also partnering with the Community Foundation that has developed programs to help more in the interior of the building. So they've gone through quite a bit of money here in the last few weeks, and we're helping out on the exterior side. So I'm glad this was done. So if we're serious about lifting the community up, if we're serious about bringing people downtown and having a thriving downtown, we've got to take action like this. Heard a comment, well, kind of just go in and talk to the business owners or property owners. Well, I heard a lot of comments that, yeah, I knew this was a problem, but didn't take care of it until you guys cited me. Now it's kind of documented, it's on paper. I have to do it now and get off my duff and do this. So if we're serious about this, these are the types of steps we have to take. And I'm glad that the meeting went the way it did. And I want to publicly thank the building department, the planning department, Mr. Tiadecki, Mr. Shreve, for all their work on this. It was definitely a group effort. All right, COVID, still a concern with the numbers fluctuating quite a bit. I had a call this morning with Summit County Health Department. So they're continuing to hold vaccination clinics. And at the end, they went through all the rules and regulations on getting a vaccination, getting your first or second, a booster, a second booster. And then he just said, listen, have your residents call us to figure it out, because it's based on age and who can get it. You have to have health conditions, pre-existing health conditions. So if you have residents that have questions on vaccine or on the vaccine or vaccinations, please have them call the Summit County Health Department. It's based on the demographic of age and pre-existing health conditions and what vaccines they've gotten previously. So very, very important as they continue trying to fight COVID-19. As stated earlier, we're waiting to hear back from the State of Ohio Department of Development on grants for removal of blighted structures in town. I talked to the director a few weeks ago, and so she told me we should hear something here in the next few weeks. So by the end of June. So keep your fingers crossed. And then just lastly, tomorrow's Board of Health meeting has been canceled for lack of agenda. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. There's a home in my neighborhood where the person has passed away, and the estate is being handled by an attorney, but there's not been any mowing or anything like that, and they don't have any next of kin. They didn't have children, they don't have any parents living or anything. So I guess it got mowed today, but what should we tell people that call with that complaint? I mean, do I call your office, or who do I call to?
We'll follow the same process.
Mm-hmm.
We can reach out to, talk to me later, we can reach out to the attorney
Mm-hmm.
and see if they can, through the estate, hire a mowing company.
Okay.
But if we continue to mow, it'll be on the taxes, and once
Right.
it'd be in a state through the courts for quite a while at times,
Mhm.
if it's messy. But that would be assessed to the taxes, and whoever acquires the property would have to pay for that. But if we can use any funds in the estate or the lawyer could,
Right.
to hire a mowing company, then that could
Okay.
help out. So-
I'll get back with you about that because I know who the attorney is, so.
Mr. Mayor, Peaceful Fruits, are they still here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Just
Still at the
one.
old Burger King there at the dead end of East Tusk.
Okay.
Tusk Corners. Yes.
This question is for you and for Director Hunt. A lot of the concerns I got with the downtown sweep there was a lot of sidewalks. With that much documentation, are we going to be able to chase federal or state dollars to assist in doing one complete overhaul of the sidewalks, or is that going to fall squarely on them?
So legally, it falls squarely on them, right?
Mhm.
But we talked about that. Is there a program we can put together to kind of either offset the cost or at least get a contractor that will, one contractor does all the work, that it'll lessen the cost. So we do have a residential sidewalk replacement program. So do we just model the same program for the commercial side. So one of the gentlemen there at the meeting has a property, and I believe he got a violation on the sidewalks, and he brought that up. Some other city was doing that, so we have not reinventing the wheel, we got on the residential side. So, yeah, we're discussing that internally.
With that many, I didn't know if it was, you had said in the past, for instance, when there's flooding problems, you get 3 calls, and FEMA kind of brushes it off because they say you only had 3 calls. I didn't know if building a nice portfolio of things, if that would entice grant money from the Fed to say, hey, come match this or come do this, because we have this many in disarray.
Possibly there's, Mr. Hunt would know more than I do, but there's grant programs out there to kind of, not specifically for sidewalks, but maybe for redeveloping downtown, and that could be a part of it. So we'd have to kind of look at those grants, see what the process is, and move forward, or that's something that we can maybe build a program internally to help out. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, one more, Mr. Mayor. On the sidewalk program, if a resident has a sidewalk and they got it through the sidewalk program, okay, in the future, I had a call today about it, uneven. How would that work if that sidewalk needs replaced or something like that? Because it's a trip hazard now or something. Would
So
they?
They could sign up for the program again.
Okay.
But we're also, technology's kind of changed, and we have discussed internally and received some quotes on, I'm going to mess up the wording, but how they drill the kind of down
Yeah,
hole
yeah.
and can bring it up to level.
Mhm.
So we've discussed that too, and is that an option that we can use instead of just tearing out that whole piece of concrete or sidewalk and replacing it? So it's a more inexpensive option. So we're kind of looking at both of those.
So what should the resident do?
Have them contact my office or the building department, and they
Okay.
can walk them through.
Building.
Okay, building.
Yeah.
Okay.
They started their list for residential.
Okay.
They just are getting together the.
But I believe I mentioned a few
Because
weeks ago, we
I've
got
had
a
a few people.
a contact from, I believe it was the Ohio Construction Association, saying that concrete in Ohio is going to be limited. Limited in supply, and they may limit the amount each person can buy. So, that's one of the reasons why on the street program, we didn't go out for bid for concrete streets, because we didn't want to go out for bid and then not be able to produce. So we're kind of monitoring that situation to see, maybe later this year we go out for sidewalk and street, concrete street resurfacing. So we're just kind of watching that and seeing where that goes. But have them contact my office or the building department.
Building, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I also have open office hours this Saturday from 9 to 11 at the Acton All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have one other thing. Weather for the next couple days or next couple weeks is going to be pretty high, so just make sure you check on your loved ones, neighbors, and pets. This meeting is adjourned at 7:25 p.m.
So you didn't forget it?
All right, gentlemen.
Okay.
They missed a short meeting today. They messed up.
Yeah, so
I
in her
would
absence, she did
contact
say today
your
and the 27th.
Inspector
But
by sending them
another
an
week.
email,
Yeah, so we have
because
to make
it's so
sure
hard to get through. Yeah, or
It is
stop
what it is.
in
We have
and tell
to.
them.
And by charter, we have to have
tell
community
Marcia,
meetings every week.
because she's the one keeping the list. Yeah.
We'll fix that one.
This is the church down.
So that was my question.
The lighting in front of the building is really, really bad.
Oh, good.